Today on the Self Smarter podcast.
I have decided that I'm going to live a life that is happy for me, but really like pushing the envelope and understanding what makes me happy. And if you can understand what makes you happy, then that can really lead you to a path of introspection, but also you're really understand why you're making decisions and how that lives in that place and space in your life in that moment. But it's okay if it also changes.
Hi, we're Danelle and Megan, the hosts of this conversation-centric podcast for leaders seeking to be better every day. Whether you choose to be a leader in the workplace, at home, or in your community, we believe the most effective leaders are equipped to not only be self-starters, but self-smarter.
Hello, and welcome to Self Smarter. I'm Megan, and this is my friend and co-host Danelle.
Hello, everyone.
We're in New York today. It's a beautiful day outside, and we have a new friend here, Miss Mollie Garza.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
We're so glad you're here.
Neighbor.
We just, as a tiny little spoiler alert, we've been kind of debriefing with Mollie in preparation for this episode and not sure where it's going to go, but I know she's got a lot to talk about that's going to be really exciting.
Yes.
Danelle was just talking about something she wants to ask her that she's not prepared to answer. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for that. All right. Before we get into it, let's introduce Mollie properly. So let me read about you. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, y'all. Mollie is a native Texan. Mollie is a first-generation Latina American sales and business development executive with over 12 years of experience in the marketing and advertising industry. And I know this, I'm going to add in this, she's lived in New York and made it for 12 years.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
That's right.
Okay. She has worked for Fortune 500 companies, including Walmart, which I think has reigned in the number one spot for years.
They are number one.
Yes. Verizon Wireless, who's at number 50, as well as media tech companies. Her experience in industries range from CPG, retail, and telecommunications, so she is very well-rounded. She has previously served on board roles such as on SheRunsIt and for other charities. When she's not working, she's taking morning runs in New York City and spending time with family and meeting new people. Welcome, Mollie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we're so glad you're here. I would love for Danelle to explain how we know Mollie. How do we know Mollie?
Because there's a swimming pool on top of our building that we love to hang out at.
And
Here in
we're
New
so
York.
lucky.
Yes.
There's no pools in Manhattan.
No, yes. So Mollie, we live in the same building, and this is brand new property that just opened up, I think, a year ago.
Yeah.
And so I moved here last December, as everyone knows who listens, and then into this space. And then you moved here in May, like you moved into the building in May.
Yep.
So, right, what happens in New York is the pools open Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Traditionally through Labor Day, sometimes a couple of weeks after. The weather's been so warm, so it was a little bit longer this season. But this pool was like a big draw. And so I don't know what it was, but I wasn't there right away. But then the minute I started visiting, it didn't matter what, it didn't feel like, and my schedule is so all over the place. I go random, I would just go out there to read or whatever because it's so beautiful in the city. And I would run into Mollie. I would see her, and I was like, okay, she has definitely lived here since the doors have opened. You knew every single person, and not just knew them, but I don't know, there was just this hospitality to you. Like there was this welcomingness. And so a lot of the times I wasn't in the most welcoming mood. I was there to read, kind of disappear. I don't know, just be by myself. And I guess I should say in not the most social mood. And so one day I was just hanging out in the water. By this point it had gotten really hot.
It was really hot that day.
And I was drinking a cocktail out of my Self Smarter Yeti whatever glass. And we just started chatting. It was easy. It was an easy, hour chat that just went zigzag, zigzag. And before you knew it, we knew we had so much in common. There's just for we don't talk about age on here other than mine, and everybody knows my age. But there's a distinct age difference between the two of us. But we have so much in common, both from Dallas. We figured that out real quick, which also equates to Dallas Cowboy fans.
Absolutely.
I was hopeful. She knows football inside and out. Interesting fact, too, I had worked for Walmart. You all know, most of you know that. So we had this Walmart connection, We have this SEC connection. She's a Razorback.
Go Hogs.
Go Hogs. Yeah, well, especially 2 weekends ago, Go Hogs.
Yeah.
As they went down the drain because
Okay,
NM
we
beat
can't
them.
talk about that. I cannot.
Yeah, it was a little sensitive, a little too soon.
Too soon.
Oh, we had that in common. And then we have this marketing media background. And that's kind of where we spent our careers, yours thus far, and my entire career. So, and then we just found other common music, and then it became travel. So we've had endless conversations about travel. She's an extensive traveler, so we have to talk about some of that. She has some incredible experiences. And it was just easy. And it was easy and we ended up randomly that night cooking leftovers out of my fridge and making Manhattans together. And I don't know, it was
so good.
It
so
felt so
fun.
good because obviously you have, a lot of people, you have a big time schedule entertaining clients and doing your thing, but you were just, you knew I was new to the area and I'd only not even lived in New York a year, but you just opened your arms to me and you've introduced me to people nonstop. She's invited me to different things. And so, I don't know, it was just a fast friendship and connection, and I'm just very appreciative of it. So that's my version of the story. I don't know what your version of the story is.
You're awesome. I mean, yeah, we have the same story. You were reading when I met you. You were definitely reading. And I was like, I wonder what she's reading. And then I saw your water bottle, and I was like, I wonder what that is.
Yep.
And I'm curious also, Self-Smarter sounds interesting to me. Sounds like something I would definitely be into. And then, yeah, we have so much in common, so it made it really easy. And as somebody who's lived in New York for 12 years plus, I know how hard it can be to come to the city, but how important it is to have connections here. And that's really how people thrive and continue to live in the city and really enjoy it. So you're awesome. Of course, I want you in my circle. Like, come on in, girl. So I'm excited to do more together. And I'm so happy that we met. And that's why I'm here. I would not be here without you. So thank you for having me.
Yummy. Okay, so you've both gotten us very excited, and we're going to talk more about Mollie right after this advertisement. Hello, Self-Smarter listeners. I can't believe the new year is right around the corner. Like, what exactly happened to 2023? I can't believe it. What a blip. I don't know about you, but I'm getting excited about starting a fresh new year in my life and here on the podcast. And in other news, I want to be honest with you. The more I think about building a podcast schedule for 2024, the more I think about you. I'm wondering if Danelle and I are really talking about the things that keep you up at night relative to leadership, or alternatively, what's working for you that you want us to shout out from the rooftops. Tell us what you want to hear, dear listeners. Send us an email at info@beselfsmarter.com, or just DM us on social media and tell us what's up with you. What do you want us to tackle and unpack for you in 2024? You know us, we're so happy to do it. And if it is meaningful to you, hit us up and tell us more. Okay, let's dive more into you, Miss Mollie. Let's talk about your relationship with leadership. So as you know, our listeners are primarily leaders in organizations or their communities. So talk to me about your relationship with leadership.
Oh, leadership. I love this question because I've heard so many other folks get on and talk about this. So I first want to give my point of view on leadership.
Okay.
I do believe in servant leadership. That is, I think, just such a critical, amazing role to have in a company. And servant leadership is the way that I prefer to be led, but also the way that I like to work with others. So that means really servicing the customer, and the customer can be anyone from your employee to the clients that you have, the business partners, and anybody that supports you. So if you think about that customer, and if you put them number one, then that will create you as a servant leader, constantly servicing them. So we talked about working at Walmart. I believed in this. I mean, I've believed in this for a really long time through the coaches that I've had through my younger life, and then also the coaching I've had in my career. One of the reasons I went there was to really eat, live, and breathe that culture.
At Walmart specifically?
Yep.
Did you learn from them more about the servant leadership model?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so that's where you did a lot of training relative to leadership.
I wouldn't say training, but
Okay.
really just putting something that you've really appreciated and a principle that you believe in and try to live by into practice, and really witnessing with eyes wide open how other people treat that, but then also taking on the responsibility of that in how you are as a leader in your own role.
Are you typically, when you're learning about leadership, especially at Walmart, let's just start from the beginning of your career, were you leading people? Were you being led in this way? Talk to me about your role at
Thank
Walmart.
you. Yeah. Any role that I've had, I'm a sales leader.
Okay.
And whether or not that means manager, vice president, it does not matter. Being a seller, you lead by design because you are essentially guiding your partners into what's the best for their business and guiding your supporting team into how to be the most efficient, productive, and successful partner in the business. So that's how that works.
Got it.
So you went to school in Fayetteville, obviously you're Razorback. Did you go immediately from college to working for Walmart? Did they recruit you, or there were stints before you got to Walmart?
Yeah, there's a whole lineup before I got to Walmart.
Okay,
for sure.
but you worked in Walmart when you were in New York City.
Yes.
Okay, so I
yes.
just want to clear that up because it could be easily to assume that you were in Bentonville or one of their.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Good
so
point,
but that's
good
not.
point.
But that was here. Okay.
Yes, in New York.
Okay.
Yeah. So my career really started, I say career. I started working for different companies as a sponsor, somebody that worked in sponsorships or promotions at a young age as soon as I could work. Just came from a really hardworking single parent family. So I tried to make as much as I could before I went to college. And then once I went to college, worked for a modeling agency, a marketing agency, but really being on the front side of how do we execute events, sponsorships, and sales. And then moved to New York by way of Verizon Wireless. And thank you to them because they actually sponsored my my both junior and senior year of college through the Hispanic College Fund.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
And then the team did a really great job recruiting me into a role. And then they moved me to New York to headquarters to work on actually the product and innovation team under the marketing umbrella, where I would initiate partnerships with some of the biggest innovators at the time. Have it be Angry Birds, which had just launched.
Oh, wow.
Have it be Twitter. Have it be the NFL coming out with their new mobile app and like what, updates are going to be there, whether it's an RSS feed or something like really neat. So really awesome job to have coming into New York. And so that's the experience that I, kind of came in with to the city. And then everything kind of just took off from there into various media companies, Walmart including, and as well as iHeartMedia.
Okay, so I know when I first talked to Danelle about you, she was like, I just met the coolest chick today. It was that same day, I think, that you all met at the pool. And she was like, she worked for iHeartMedia. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that, your experience there.
Yeah, also really
wink,
cool.
Wink,
yeah.
Just kidding.
Wink, wink. Also a really great company.
Yeah.
iHeartMedia just does so much from the audio space, which we are very familiar with here. So that includes podcasting. It can include streaming, your favorite radio station broadcast. But they do a ton of events. Actually, the biggest event here across the country is Jingle Ball, and it's a pure sellout. Sells out within hours, especially in places, big cities like New York City. So I was in sales there and recently left. I'm currently a free agent. But I held a role where I was working on CPG and retail brands and working with the CMOs directly. And my goodness, like to work with mega brands like that and people and partners that I've either surrounded my career, with or, really just I'm such a big fan of the CMOs of, Pepsi and Walmart, of course, like how are you not? And just, kind of understanding their business. What are their needs? How can we help? What does that look like? And take a big macro, pencil and drawing board and saying, this is how we can effectively get you to where you want to go with your customers. Yeah.
Again, not calling out your age, but your career's just under 15 years in the making.
Yeah.
Right? So in just 15 years, which is not, in many ways it's a long time, in many ways it's not. But in this instance, it's not to think that you have, and you had admirable stints with these companies. So, but you've, in a short 15 years, worked for Walmart, Verizon, and iHeartMedia, to name a few. And there's a few others on there. And that's just impressive. And a lot of your departures weren't to your own accord, but you work in, those are some pretty volatile industries, or it's not even, your roles aren't even meant to last there's not a lot of companies now where there's a 30-year tenure. I
Right.
mean, let's be honest. Like, there's very few people. I mean, I'm 51 years old, know a lot of people, and probably can count on one hand the amount of people that I know that have a 30-plus service career to one organization.
Yep.
So I just want to put that out there. Can be more common in our industry, or at least the industry that we serve mostly with our company, which is agriculture. But even now, that is very rare. So I just think it's impressive the types of companies that you work for. And I think now that you, as you have mentioned, you're in this free agency. So and the way I like to think about that is you're in this beautiful spot of choosing next. So Mollie has choices of where she's going to go. Now you're in the process of deciding who you want to work for. Because I know you have multiple options. We've had a lot of conversations about that. So, or at least in-depth conversations about that. I'm interested in this time you're taking to prepare yourself for next. What are you working on right now as a leader to prepare you for your next decision, besides obviously interviewing companies? Because that's really what's happening right now. So tell us a little bit more about that.
How much can I breathe into this mic right now? Take a deep breath, y'all.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath. My goodness.
I just think it's a beautiful position to be in, a position of choice. You've worked really hard. You've been very smart. You haven't burned any bridges with departures, whether they are of your own accord or, the company's layoff issues or whatever it may be. But you still have relationships, and that's one of the things I want to say to each of you. Is one of the things that I just mentioned, that I had a podcast. She went and listened to it on her own, and then came back to me and was like, I'm connecting these dots with these people and this and that. And I was just like, wow. So there's this generosity about you. But right now you're having to think about you and what you want to do next. Are you going to stay? Let me preface the previous question with, are you going to stay in a sales role? Are you looking to expand? But how are you preparing yourself to lean into this next role?
Yeah, that's such a big question. I really am breathing more. So this is good. Slowing things down.
I heard you. You need a breather break.
I need a breather break.
Yeah.
But, as I look into the next role, I will be in business development partnerships. So the thing about sales and working in media, if you know anything about it, it can be fast turn, really quick. And I've worked in business development roles where we've had commercial 3 to 5 plus year partnerships and kind of looking, taking a more macro view. And so that's really where I want to get. I want to slow things down truly. And that includes the partnerships that I work on. So deeper relationships, long-term partnerships. So it'll look that way in terms of the role. But more importantly, when you start to understand a pivot or a change or your next step in your career, and you're somebody who's really motivated and kind of sees your future, but like from a big point of view, I think that it's super important to take introspection, which is also why I love this podcast, because you dig really deep and get vulnerable with people. And so I'm taking a moment of introspection and telling myself to pause on getting too excited about interviews, for example. So saying no to things like interviewing is not easy right now, but I'm taking few and far between, and you have to be like a unicorn company and somebody that I know really well at this moment in time. So introspection is number one. The way that I'm doing that is working with a career coach and taking a look back at the companies that I've been at and really taking it with a fine-tooth comb and saying, looking back and saying, why did I do this? And to be quite honest, the reason why I've taken positions in the recent past have been for money. New York City is extremely expensive. And I paid my own way through college if it wasn't paid for by a company through scholarship. And I'm independent, 100% independent, and love to travel, love to live my life, and also support my family. And so I have a lot of responsibility on my plate, and so have made decisions in my career for money. I'm pausing right now because my personal life is has always been important to me, but it does look different. My family's in Texas. I would like to build my own family. I'm currently single in New York, y'all, and available. And so, a little bit more time for the dating life. And what happens in media sales in New York City is you're entertaining 3 days a week, if not more. And you're talking, dinners, late night, concerts, Coachella, if a company allows you to do that, or South by Southwest, if a company allows you to do that. So all of that just really takes away from your personal life. And I have more personal life that I want to live with my family, my very close friends, and my future husband, wherever he is. And so, so right now it's a moment of introspection, and that's the number one thing that I'm focused on, to understand, who I am, where I want to go, and, take a fine tooth comb there. And then second is, I'm so hungry for education and learning. Yeah. Oh man, holy guacamole. When you've been at this many companies and, the age that I've been at, it is a lot of companies, but that's a lot of movement.
It is.
It's a lot of movement.
And a fast pace.
And very fast paced, exactly. And so, of course, there's things I've missed along the way. If you're just constantly changing jobs all the time, you're freaking preparing for an interview and not actually putting into practice some of the things that you truly, want to understand about being a leader, or taking your leadership by example and asking them a ton of questions. Like if you're moving too fast and going on to the next and going on to the next, you're not being, spending the time that you need to really go into depth and absorb everything around you.
So was this, as a young person, I'm fascinated by this. Did you consciously go into this phase of wanting to understand yourself better and take this pause? Or was this, you're not using the word burnout. You're not using it at all. But what I'm hearing is what I think people think burnout looks like. And so you're trying to, it's like where you are supposed to go relative to your personality and thriving in sales and marketing, and at the same time you're pushing on the brakes. Is that necessary? Are you doing this for mental health? Are you doing this for it's like you're teeing your future up for success? Yeah. To look a little different.
Absolutely. Burnout, man, that's a great word. I haven't used that in a little while, because what I describe as burnout, my capacity is so high.
I get that.
I think that if you're a very motivated person,
yes, you can take it.
Yeah, if you've hit max capacity, whatever that is, and you remember what that is, I will tell you, I am not at burnout right now.
Okay.
I have not hit max. This is by no means max capacity. But what I am doing is taking the time that I didn't do in the last time that I had this. I didn't pause to move on to the next role. I made a quick decision.
Just move. Yeah.
Because I knew what I was looking for.
Yeah. Good for you.
And I'm constantly refining who I am as a person, and also what I need. And so one thing that you talked about, and you guys have talked about on the podcast, is working remote, and the time that you and whether or not you need to be in the office. In New York City right now, hybrid is very popular. Hybrid is honestly changing right now. If you had 1 day a week, it's now 3 days a week. If it's 3 days a week, you're talking about 5 days a week.
Are you talking about
in the office?
So it's in the office is coming back in New York, is what you're saying? It's coming
back in New York.
Okay.
And because I have family away, and because I enjoy traveling, I've just realized that having a path to either working remotely or having a very flexible work life is really, really important to me. And so that's, for example, just one thing that I'm experiencing is, okay, you've had all this experience, now what? And what does a great and perfect role look like for you next, but not just next, for the next 5 years plus, rather than just right now.
It's so interesting.
Go ahead. Yeah. Do you?
No, you go.
I was just going to say, I'm listening to you, and I guess I'm pulling from other conversations we've had as well, as you just describe yourself as you haven't hit burnout because you're motivated. What I see in you, I would have never said it's because you're definitely a highly motivated person, but I think motivated people can hit burnout. One sitting right here next to you. I think what you are is you're decisively disciplined. you're a very disciplined person. Even if the discipline is to go have a good time, you're disciplined and you're focused on doing that.
Have a great time,
right. But you work hard, you play hard. You're up at sunrise most days. You're up at sunrise, working out, taking in the beautifulness that we have around us, wherever you are, And I see discipline as being part of the secret to your success relative to how you've been able to navigate. And again, to remind everyone, we're talking about a career, yes, in sales, somewhat marketing, business development, but the areas that she's mostly serviced, that you've mostly serviced, is media and technology. So so those are very volatile spaces, even though they're not going anywhere. The companies that operate within them and how well they do one quarter versus the next, it's extremely volatile. And so I think there's just that dynamic too. But yes, your tolerance is exceptional when it comes to being able to manage things. And I've picked up on things that you said, like, I need to do these things this week to be successful, and I need to have more of this in my week. And we have a whole episode on work-life balance is bullshit. Wait, that's not the name.
I mean, basically.
Anyway, I let everyone know that I believe that work-life balance is bullshit, because we've been taught that it's a destination that you get to, when the reality is in my experience and opinion, and my experience over and over again, not just once, is that our balance has to come in shorter time frames, because there's just going to be weeks where you're going to show up as being the best version of yourself professionally, and you're probably going to miss some calls, not with mom, because we don't miss every day. We don't miss calls with mom
after the sunrise, after the workout.
That's right. We don't. And so I know this about you, right? So there's just these exceptions about you that I think are admirable, and things that I want to highlight as something that I've learned about you. And I'm like, that's part of the secret of her success, is your commitment to discipline, and that you treat balance in a more manageable time frame. I don't know how else to say it. I believe that's what makes you immune to some degree. Burnout can happen at any moment. Yeah. But I do think that that's what makes you somewhat immune to it thus far in your career. And I think your preparation, and to have the mindset that I don't want to enter into this next agreement with a company, this next commitment I make with the next lucky ass company, in my opinion, is you are saying, I want to be better prepared. I don't need all the things I once needed from a company, so I'm going to be more select. I'm going to do some things in preparation between these stints to really fill your tank, so that when you do start, it gives you the energy that you need. So I don't think we give ourselves a lot of time to do that, because it can be a very stressful time. It can be a very stressful time to change gears and careers. And not that you're changing careers, but I think you are looking in it in a broader space than you have before, based on our conversations.
Yep.
So I just find it to be, again, very admirable, but I wanted to let you know that I think it's your discipline that is probably one of your number one characteristics relative to your success, from what I can see.
Do you realize that you're disciplined?
No.
I thought you were going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think of myself as this, and we've talked about this.
Yeah.
There are certain things that I don't believe about myself that are the reality. I know that I live a big life. If there's Tim McGraw's song, we both love Tim McGraw, Live Like You're Dying. It is, when I listened to this, y'all, in middle school, I really took that, like, for everything that it's worth. I have decided that I'm going to live a life that is happy for me, but really, like, pushing the envelope and understanding what makes me happy. And if you can understand what makes you happy, then that can really lead you to a path of introspection, but also you're really understand why you're making decisions, and how that lives in that place and space in your life in that moment. But it's okay if it also changes. And so, you talk about my discipline. Man, if I could wake up at 5 a.m., like, I would love that, but I'm not there yet. But I do wake up every morning, and I appreciate the sunrise. I do my workout because I know that that's part of what keeps me balanced. I'm high energy, so, like, I don't want that to come out on my colleagues or my partners throughout the day. And I call my mom. She's, you know, she's really important to me, and just keeping up with her. And then after that, work begins, right? So this is all really important, and it makes me understand time and the value of time, where you spend your time. And so, you know, I can get into what a job description might look like, and, you know, understanding that. But if you just, instead of looking at other people, what other people have decided is a job, and you say, I manage myself, I am the job, and then you start to write your job description, then that's a whole nother ball game.
That's beautiful.
And that takes time. That takes self-awareness, but also, you know, really, really dialing into yourself.
Yeah.
That's well said. And I think the way what you just described to me is the antidote to this description that we have a work and then we have the rest of our life.
Yeah.
Like, why in the hell would we compare
Live
those
during
two
all of
things?
it. Yeah.
Part of your life, if you so choose, is work. But when you take it from the mindset that I am the job, I am the product, I am the service, when you take it like that, it becomes less of this doldrum of what I have to do. It's what I want to do.
That's
because
right.
I'm actually curating that role. And now I don't know if I want our pilots out there flying us around in airplanes to take that much liberty.
You know, do I want to land this
Mollie
plane?
looks really great right now, Austin, Texas. Y'all want to go there?
Exactly.
You know, the weather's bad in the next destination, so we might as well just skip over.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, I think but most of us can take that approach, and not that pilots can, I'm just saying, but it's a mindset around what work is, and I think we have to be conscious of it, and that's part of really what led us to start this podcast, is because I was almost treating running this company and being a leader of this company as work. I was all focused on the work and the performance and the external masculine metrics and those things that mattered the most to me. And when I changed what mattered the most to me, you know, the business and the people also changed. But I led by example, and I was lucky enough to choose most of the right directions along the way from that 26% approval rating, which you're very aware of. You know, I disclosed that almost like third on my list of, hi, my name's Danelle, and I'm from Texas. I live in New York now, and I was a shitty leader. But one of the things we've mentioned her several times, and you mentioned that you grew up in a household, a single mom. You have 2 siblings.
Yep.
Could you talk to us a little bit about your birth order and, well, like your siblings, but more importantly, your relationship with your mom and her role in your life? Because I think it's a beautiful part of the story.
Oh, man. Tears. Okay, y'all, this is a tearjerker.
No, it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Happy part.
I'm the youngest in the family, which the youngest child has this persona, and I just want to break it down, y'all. We are the best. Like, I know we've been told that, and we absolutely are. You learn from your older siblings.
Of youngest will agree.
Middles and oldest. Thank you so much for the due diligence and the work that y'all did.
put in.
And we should be apologizing for the rest of our lives also.
Yes.
No, so that's, I was a little kidding, but anyways, all jokes. My mother she is so important to me. Mm-hmm. She's a single mom. She came over here to the U.S. in the 80s. She's originally from El Salvador, and I'll just describe the way that she grew up, because I think that that's really important for anybody who surrounds themselves with anybody who's first generation. It's pretty special. And so my mom grew up on a coffee farm. Her house was pretty much made of clay. And she grew up really close to my grandfather, who was a farmer, and they kind of just spent their nights, looking at the sky and understanding coffee. And, it's a really tough life. She had one outfit to go to school with every day that she cleaned by the rivers. And so when you grow up that way, and then you're me, who lives in a high rise in New York City, that's a big generational difference.
Big jump. One generation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one generation, really big jump. And so that comes with a lot of emotional turbulence, in the best ways, but also in the toughest ways. But oh my gosh, I would not be here without my mother. She essentially pushed me onto the plane to come to New York City when I didn't want to. And when I was going to college, I didn't actually even believe that I was going to be able to go to college because I knew we couldn't afford it. Mm-hmm. And she was like, when there's a will, there's a way. We'll figure it out. And I was just closed my eyes and said, she said, but she said, I don't know. So, you know, she's not only the most important person in my life, but she's really has raised me in a way of believing that whatever it is that you want to pursue in your dreams, you can absolutely achieve it if you're willing to put the work in.
Gosh, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And so you have 2 older brothers?
I have an older sister.
Oh, older sister.
Older sister and an older brother who I love and adore. My sister's a veteran, and, you know, that's
amazing.
I really, really respect her for all the work that she's done and the commitment that she has to our country. And then my older brother has so many children. We call it the kindergarten class. He is a great dad. He's super dad. And he's just awesome. And he was I never had a dad. And so he was a father figure, or is still in my life. I don't think his role will ever change.
Right.
He might think I'm an adult, but, you know, we're still an adult in training here, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
We were meeting and we're going to circle back to all the travels, but one of our first times we met, you were literally leaving. I don't know if it was a one-night stay, but flying all the way back to Dallas to go to Metallica with your brother to surprise him for his birthday, and the nephews, and they were all rocking out. I love following you on social. Oh, yeah. So it was just, I don't know, learning about your family was a special part, too, of our connection, because I just admire. I mean, you made no bones about it. It's forefront in your life, and I'm hopeful that your family, and I'm sure they will be, because I know they're such big supporters of you listening to this, but it was immediate, apparent, and like no question mark whatsoever. So I love that, and I love that. You know, I hope that Mackie and I are super close, and you've met Mackie Payton, and that fills my tank, is to think that relationship, you know, can continue to foster into adulthood, and I love it. So it was inspirational. So one of the other things we bonded on, and I think you were exhausted when we met. It was hot. I was in the cocktails. I went and got you another cocktail because you said, I'm tired. I've been traveling. And I didn't, okay. And so what led to that is you casually say to me, because I don't know if I asked you or if you just mentioned it, but she was like, yeah, I'm just getting back from Cannes Lion. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's in the south of France. That is like the premier. We'll put the link in the show notes to accurately describe it, but I think most of us who are in marketing know that that's like one of the premier marketing media. They've probably expanded beyond it, events that there is, and I've just been in total awe of it, especially in like more the last 10, 15 years. You follow Gary Vee, you follow that whole crew.
Absolutely.
You learn about these awards, and and so she had just returned from there. Now, that in itself was impressive, and I had tons of questions, and she was probably like, could you ask me, I just said I'm tired, could you ask me any more questions about this event? But I was enthralled. But I think the thing that stood out, and the thing I want you to share with our listeners, because this has another part to your story and really true to your character, is that you started going there years ago. I'm not sure with which company you're at. You can elaborate on that. But you started going there, and you saw a need for people who just didn't know how to really navigate the event. The event can be very overwhelming. Yep. It can also be very personalized, but to get from overwhelming, you're going to the south of France, you have all these distractions. It's kind of difficult to know how to navigate that, and it's probably, as much as the event organizers do, that's an undertaking. It's not like you're going to Vegas. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going a long way. And Mollie saw a need for people who struggled with that, because you did. And you said, I'm just going to start making this a little bit more personalized and easier for people. I want to help people get more acquainted with the event to have a better experience than what you originally had. So tell us a little bit about that and your relationship with this incredible event. So how long ago since when you first came?
Oh my gosh. It was like 7 years ago.
Okay.
So Cannes Lion, it's the international awards ceremony for advertising. Mm-hmm. So think red carpet, gold Cannes Lion Awards.
Wow.
For prestigious brands that are being awarded in various areas, whether it's inclusion, whether it's
Okay.
outspoken, or, I would actually give a really great example because P&G is a phenomenal brand, international, and run like a girl. You probably remember that advertisement, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they're an example of, and that exact advertisement is an example of a Cannes Lion Award winner. And so it's red carpet, and anybody who's there, you're typically C-suite, or you're the creatives or the producers, or, any supporting role to make that advertisement happen. So when you get there, there's so many activations, your eyes are bleeding. You get there's a whole map, there's an app, there's badges, there's credentials, there's events and parties. And, if you look at my Google Calendar that thankfully we all put together, I have anything from a Snapchat party to Google party to Meta party to, you name the company, TikTok. There's events and panels all over the place. And actually, I do want to mention, I do believe that one of the best brand activations that fits for me was a sports beach. And the sports beach was hosted by Stagwell, and I know the CMO there. And you're running with Olympians at 6 o'clock in the morning before your actual workday starts, right? Oh my gosh, amazing. And
Once in a lifetime stuff.
Totally. I got to meet Michael Johnson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and shake his hand. Michael Johnson.
He's slow.
He's real slow. I was like, you want to race?
Yeah, I bet you were.
Oh, man. So, yeah, it's just really, really cool. And I had the opportunity to go. It was my first sales role ever. I was working for a startup. And at the time, I was one of the first sellers at the company, had crushed my numbers, and the company Live Intent. Thank you, Matt and John, for sending me over to Cannes. We worked really well together, and I was able to go to the conference, and it was such a big opportunity to network. And so fast forward, that was years and years and years ago. And I now have a WhatsApp group called Yes We Can, which is a phrase. Get it? Yes we can. And it has over 200 people connected worldwide. And that's 100% organic. You've heard about it, the Yes We Can WhatsApp group. And then you realize that I'm one of the admins, and there's two other amazing people, friends of mine, Michael, who lives in Madrid, who's an executive at Amadeus, and then Rose, and she runs her own consulting firm. And you figure out that this is a place to network, a place to connect, but also these people have access to parties, events, and we are also curating our own dinners and help you get connected.
That's amazing.
And so it's just awesome what we've done, and I bought the yeswecan.com website, so I'll curate that and really brand it for next year. But yeah, totally,
But you did that. You didn't do that because you're like, Mollie needs another something, or Mollie needs some notoriety. You did it because you wanted to you wanted to build a connection for people. But I said, what's the main purpose of that WhatsApp group? Like, what is the main purpose? And you're like, to help people's experience at the event be the most that it can be. Because like you said, it can be overwhelming. But then also to keep you all connected on a year-round basis. And you have to, and y'all are pretty, not just anybody can hop into the WhatsApp group, because you want people that are serious about that event, but then also having meaningful connections on a year-round basis. So I found that to be just an extraordinary, selfless thing to do. I mean, I know you were, again, just trying to help people. And that's honestly what we're trying to do with this podcast. Every week we're getting on here talking about things that are fun a lot of the times, and a bunch of stuff that's not. And so anyway, I found that to be interesting.
Yeah. I think it's just so important, and for obviously Self-Smarter and the people that you're connecting with and the community that you're creating, authenticity is number one. As soon as you put something in front of that incentivizes people to be a part of it, it now removes that because there's some sort of intention. So when I speak about Rose, who's one of the admins, she has her own consulting firm called People Obsessed. And Michael, who works at Amadeus, we came together this year and said, whoa, our numbers are getting really big, and we haven't, really put a lot of, like, I could go out to my network. I have over 5,000 followers on LinkedIn alone. You know, we could really run this group and make it much bigger. But what's our intention? And what we like is that you want to be a part of this. Mm-hmm. You've heard that this is a place that people come to. So you have a buddy system. Mm-hmm. I'm going on there and like, hey, y'all, I know people are out till 2 a.m. at the Gutter Bar. If you know about it, the Gutter Bar will keep you out till 5. But I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. and do the morning run. Who's with me?
Yeah.
And that, you know, people are leaving the Gutter Bar probably as soon as they send that message, I hope. And but, you know, you find people who have similar interests, and there's so much to see at Cannes, whether it's a sports beach or you want to talk about culture and diversity and you want to talk about Black voices internationally, you can do that. And so, you know, because there's so much going on, it's so overwhelming, you can really get lost. And so the intention is to find people or to have a group of people that, and there's enough that you can have a buddy to go somewhere and find what it is that you like. Smart. And not be alone.
That's really smart. And that's going well for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. There was another event that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's perfect for music moments. So
okay, so we'll save it.
We'll save it. I just decided.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, because it's
good move.
It's somewhat tied to the music moment. I think it'll be a beautiful
part
for her.
I'm just curious, listening to you and getting to know you as we're, you know, uncovering all these facts about you. What is coaching teaching you about yourself? Like, have you learned anything new? You mentioned earlier that you're being coached.
Yeah.
During this time of sort of reflection, but also vision casting for the future and figuring out what's most important to you. What are you learning from the coaching about yourself?
Oh, I'm getting
that
chills.
You like or that you don't like?
Oh my gosh. I'm getting out of my comfort zone.
With the coaching or right now?
With the coaching. And right now. All of the things.
Oh, good. Okay, good. You just talked about it. Authenticity. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think maybe if I wasn't getting coached, I wouldn't have jumped on this, you know, immediately. But I am, you know, going out of my comfort zone, and it lives in so many ways. Like, you get to hear about all the things that I've done, and that might be very successful for many people, and of course it is for me also. But I am also into a rhythm of doing exactly what I've done, and it's easy. Getting people together internationally, networking is so easy for me. So
God, that sounds really hard.
I know. It sounds crazy, doesn't it?
Yes.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm getting out of my comfort zone.
Okay. Got it.
And
that's great.
Thank you. And you know, some of those things are just action, like action against the things that you've put on your list that you've wanted to do, that you know you've wanted to do, but why did it fall back? And how did it fall back? And is it because you blinked and you're moving too quick and you didn't take time to pause and say, oh yeah, about that, about that. So I'll give you a good example. My friend Michael, who I've mentioned already, he's spoken on TEDx. My career coach has spoken on TEDx. I was supposed to be a part of a TED Talk with Adam Grant, and it was supposed to launch the week when the pandemic hit in the city.
March 2020.
Yep. And of course became irrelevant. And because I'm surrounded by awesome people who do podcasts, but also, you know, have done TEDx, it's definitely achievable. Like I said, you can do whatever it is that you've kind of put your mind to. And so that's one thing. If you are surrounded by people who do that and know that you want to get there, you have a coach that says, these are the things that you said that you value, get there.
Yeah.
And what's stopping you from getting there? And then now you're saying, you can't look at somebody and say, I don't have time.
Right.
Because that's a load of crock. So like, you do have time, and you have to prioritize your time in that way. So for me, getting out of my comfort zone is the practice of continuing to say no and say no to more.
Okay.
Because I'm so well networked and because I'm so social, I have to make time to work on myself rather than giving myself away.
Good for you. Oh, that is fantastic.
So we just did an episode on coaching and why it's important. In fact, was one of our recent, I'm not sure exactly when this particular episode's going to air, but we talked about the difference between coaching and therapy. Mm-hmm. And therapy is a reflection on your past to your present, whereas coaching a lot of the time is your present into your future. Now, I'm sure we could all sit around and argue that both can touch on all three. But I liked that description of therapy versus coaching. So I know you've been listening to podcasts. You knew me for probably 10 minutes and knew that I had a therapist on retainer. It's no secret. So I value both. And I didn't always use them at the same time. And so when I look back at the times where I was able to truly accelerate, I was able to use both. I understood the roles they played in my life and what they were how they were serving me. What are you in that same camp, or are you strictly coaching? Like, what was your? Let me ask you this. Let me ask you it this way: what is your relationship with coaching? And I don't know if you are even supportive of therapy, but what was it prior to you deciding to do either or both?
Big question.
It was kind of loaded. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, all right.
You can break it down.
Yeah, let's break it down.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about coaching, because I'm active with a coach. The most successful people that I know that I consider mentors have received some sort of coaching.
Okay.
I have a circle of support. I call them my army and my troops. And I have circle support, and y'all come in, and you have a call of duty, but I also give plenty. So it goes both ways. Mm-hmm. And in speaking with them, really understanding how they got to where they are, coaching is a part of it. Mm-hmm. So that's.
So you almost felt like you need, like, your idols, not in a gross way, but like idolizing, but like your models, your examples, your role models are being coached. So you're like, why don't I get coached?
I was open to it, right?
Yeah,
so you're open to it. And then,
especially during this time of reflection.
Totally. And then the reason why I had not done it in the past, and why I've chosen vice president role, mid to senior level, mid 30s, is because I'm at an inflection point. Mm-hmm. And because I'm at an inflection point and I know what my values are, I just want somebody to make sure that I execute an action on that, mm-hmm. and really take the time to pull back the onion and understand why it was I made certain decisions and where it is I'm looking to go. We don't have to look on that for very long, right? That's not the intention. Where do you want to go? And how is that different from where you were? And so the coach that I've chosen, we actually had been talking for a little while, but more importantly, this person has worked with big companies, big tech companies, and people who have pretty, similar titles or higher, and have worked on them to transform, whether it's into entrepreneurship, pivot into a new role, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I'm a couple steps below, I'm sure, than his other clientele, but aspirationally, that's where, I will fit.
Awesome.
I will fit somewhere around there.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's my position on coaching.
Okay, good. And so I'm sure, I'm learning, actually talking to you today, and then Danelle and I went to an event last night for Broadway Inspirational Voices, and I'm reminded that we think, or at least I know you and I did, in our generation and probably above, is that you work really hard, and like Danelle said, and then you're sort of reaping those benefits later in life. What I love about what you're talking about today is living your life and reaping the rewards all along the way.
Yeah.
There is no need for pause. I think the coaching is so smart because it's just along the way. I was going to ask you a question. I was going to ask you, what's the dream? I don't think there has to be one dream.
Totally. I agree with that.
There's a dream for now. So if your dream is to be vice president of a Fortune 500 company, to do all the things that you value, go get that. And then that is going to run its course. And then you're going to say, I want to be a mom extraordinaire or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever your next thing is. And you're probably going to need more coaching.
Yeah.
Because you've been trained
probably
to
going to
be
need therapy.
I've hit therapist. I was going to say, let's get a therapist.
Therapy and coaching. But I mean, the point is that I like breaking down a career. I've always thought that it was just one big long line. I'm learning now that it's probably, and good for you as a young person in your 30s, figuring that out, that it's not just one long line. It's several different lines that look different levels. Sometimes we're healthy, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we know exactly what we want, sometimes we don't. And just being okay with that and willing to live through all of that and always minding yourself first, taking care of you. That's my big takeaway from this whole discussion, other than you being a fantastic human.
Thank you.
It's really something for someone your age to have this kind of depth and
reflection.
Yeah, ability to see what she and I couldn't even see.
No.
At your age.
No way.
So good for you.
And I think it's this time period that we're in. We're so lucky to, I was having this conversation the other day, is like, I feel like, let's just say mid-30s and younger, there are so many challenges societally that we just didn't have to deal with being in the age bracket that we're in, mid-40s and on up. Everybody knows I'm in my 50s. But then at the same time, while there's these sometimes inconceivable challenges that y'all have had to learn to navigate that we didn't until later on, there's also all these resources and tools. And I had this conversation with a group of women recently on a girls' weekend, and one of them admitted that, she's my age, that she needed therapy, but she didn't want to do it because of the stigma. She was taught that therapy was for the weak. And it hit me, but yet she had her kids in therapy to work on their things.
Wow.
But she didn't feel like she was worthy. Like, it was almost like she couldn't see herself as, it wasn't coming from a place of misused ego.
Yeah.
It wasn't a misaligned ego. It was literally, I don't see why I should prioritize that. It was almost like doubtful if she could be helped in some way. And I do think that's one of the superpowers of this generation, that your age is leading this particular group, is that we have the resources. We do. Therapy's not whatever the word is. It's not as much of a negative stigma anymore. It doesn't carry that, right? And then coaching is a lot more acceptable. It's not for the weak. It's actually for the strong.
Absolutely.
I think Brene Brown has helped us understand that vulnerability is the key component to courage. You don't get to possess courage without being vulnerable in some capacity. So I think I love the way you said that, Megan. Obviously, we were at a very inspirational, motivational event last night, being uplifted. But I saw what you saw, and obviously we had conversations about it, but I do see that in you. And I think that's important as you become that senior leader. You're already there, but you'll become even more in that seat as you move through your career. Mm-hmm. It brings me great hope to think that there are leaders that value these things. So that was a long-winded way to say that one point, but that makes me excited for the next. Or it's not like you're not a leader now, because that's a decision, and where I stand on that. But it brings me great hope.
Yeah, thank you. I so appreciate this. It's a journey, and I think that I get really excited about breaking stigma in my generation. Mm-hmm. Me and my gal pals, which if you follow me on Instagram, we have so many, from investors to entrepreneurs, former Goldman Sachs, corporate leaders. And I'm so thankful for and appreciative of all the relationships that I have. But I will tell you, living here in New York City, when we were in our mid-20s and we've had a role that looks like X and the environment looks like Y, and why are we not getting that promotion? Why are we getting underpaid? Why is this situation happening at a networking happy hour? We were together going on ski trips in Vermont and crying. I'm telling y'all, crying in the cars, talking about these things because it's so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that in our friendship, we've always been very vulnerable and open to talking about things. Mm-hmm. And then you have leaders like Brene Brown who have made it, internationally acceptable to bring that to the forefront. Mm-hmm. And, I'll just quickly say, but, it's Hispanic Heritage Month. And I go back with my family for Day of the Dead every year in El Salvador. And I just spoke on a panel for Hispanic Heritage Month at a company that I just worked at, because the leader has taught the entire startup company that we should be having these conversations. And his employees got a panel together, asked me to speak, and we absolutely talked about what it means to be a Latin American in media, which there's not that many of us, I will say, and definitely not that many of us in senior leadership. And again, breaking stigma, and that's okay. Not all industries are this vocal, but absolutely media and advertising. It's our duty.
That's right.
When we have content that we're putting in front of people every day, that if we're not okay with it inside of our day-to-day, how do we expect the world to be more inclusive or to be more vulnerable? You know, you have to take those steps to make that happen.
Like individually.
Individually.
If we all individually
Thank
do
you for
that,
sharing
then the rise of the tide.
Yes.
The rising tide floats all ships.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So my
for
generation is very forward, and so let's keep marching, and hopefully the next generations will do the same.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I think this is a good time to transition to music, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Okay.
So
well, we could talk
for another hour
on music, because we it's a passion that we both share, or all three of us share, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mollie, I don't know. I'd been gone. I was in Greece.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I was gone for a while, and I hadn't seen her in a bit. And then I saw you. It was literally the day after you got back. So she again just casual. I'm like, oh, where you been? She casually mentions Burning Man. Okay.
Yeah.
Now it was like one of those things. It's a thing that you hear that really cool people go to. They have an incredible experience, but I really thought it was more of an art music festival, which both things are very much a part of Burning Man, but it's so much more of a religious experience, and I don't know how else to describe it. So we went and grabbed lunch the other day, and she's telling me about it, and we were supposed to talk about different things, and I literally interviewed her for 2 hours on nothing but Burning Man. So I know we don't have that much time, but can you just talk to us about that experience and really what it is for those of us who have heard about it, but maybe we don't have full context, because this is kind of a quasi music moment, because I know, but you did go see some concerts and you saw some artists there. So
Burning Man, it's an experience.
It's not a thing.
Period.
It's like an experience.
It's an experience. Y'all can't see my face behind here, but I'm like grinning ear to ear. Okay, so Burning Man is a cultural, inspirational, creative event in the middle of the desert called Black Rock City.
Oh.
okay.
Yep, and we also call it La Playa.
Okay.
And the Playa is where all the tents and everything is set up. But there's 80,000 people who go, and thousands of
80,000.
80,000.
It's like a city.
It's a city. It's exactly what happens. So you bring 80,000 creative people together, and we all live by new ways of life. So that includes 10 principles, which are essentially the values of the community.
Okay.
And then I'll go through like what it looks like, but it's really important to know that Burning Man it's a macro event, 80,000 people in the middle of the desert who live in a new world,
Right.
where things like money doesn't exist.
Okay.
And the principles, and I'll just name a few. One of them is radical self-reliance.
Okay.
Yep. So you are
Like off the grid kind of situation.
off the grid, definitely.
Okay.
I mean, there's some Wi-Fi
Like
here
grow
and
your
there.
own food.
Bring your own food.
Okay.
Survive on your own.
Okay.
Prepare for the desert.
Barter, things like that. That's what I'm, okay.
I'll explain that for sure.
Okay.
Here in a bit. So radical self-reliance is if not the top principle.
We'll put the link in the show notes for those who are interested. To see
Yes.
this.
Yeah, absolutely. Radical inclusion, so accepting of others. Eyes wide open, y'all. Just love and hug. You'll be greeted with hugs as soon as you get there, and that's how you welcome everybody. It's just with a hug, no matter what they're wearing, what they look like, and I don't know. My conversations definitely never talk about work, but and then another one is gifting. So you can bring your own gifts, and that is something that you plan for and prepare for. And if you have an emotional connection or made a buddy, then you give them a nice little gift, and gifting is a big part of this. So it's absolutely an experience. You get there and people build, you build a new city. Like I said, money doesn't
Literally.
exist. And you're everybody next to you is a part of the same community, and you're more than willing to help out your fellow man.
Do people stay there and live in this place?
Yeah. So
Okay.
imagine you're in a camp. It is a camp. You're part of a camp. So in order to get there, you're part of a camp. So you've likely know the camp leader. You've been interviewed because you have the same values or principles, and are like-minded, or whatever it is that the camp is looking for. And each camp offers something, unless you're tenting on your own or something like that. But my camp was champagne snow cones, so we offered champagne snow cones in the desert. And then you can go, for example, around my camp, you could go to another camp that offered foot massages. You're in the desert and you're hanging out all day. Like you're going to go see music. Maybe you're going to have a tasting experience. Maybe you're going to go watch, acrobats and dancers and some fire dancers along the way because your bike needed some air in the tires and you had to stop by and then you saw some dancers and maybe you got an espresso somewhere. But there's so much to see and do in this amazingness of a new universe. And that is Burning Man. Burning Man is outside of this world. There's no one way to explain it, right. But it's 100% a community of people who live by these principles. And once you enter, eyes wide open, you're going to see art exhibits. You will experience emotions. You will be a part of a community that you've never felt more accepted and included, I would say, in your lifetime, and immediate friends. And you're in the desert just late night, whether it's partying or going to see an artist, but you're on a mission, whatever it is your mission is. And I believe that if you go to Burning Man, whether or not you intended to, you will come out with a lot of self-realization. You will come out more than accepting of other human beings and accepting them for exactly who they are or just as they are. And then there's, different, you have the burns. There's a temple where you can put something to rest or bring something to life. And the temple is what it is. And it's just beautiful. And people's stories are there. So you can write to a loved one, for example, who's no longer living. You can create a piece of art that represents something about you that you want to revive or put to rest. But absolutely imagine a temple, a true temple, and you're having a very emotional experience there. And then there's a burn of the temple, and then the burn of the man. And the burn of the man, my gosh, I've never seen fireworks like this in my lifetime. Holy guacamole. Oh my gosh, the skies just light up. And you're in the middle of the desert, so you get to see stars and the moon and all that stuff. But it's about the community. It's about the community, and you get to experience things beyond anything that I've ever seen or witnessed in my entire lifetime.
Whoa.
So now you can see why I had her choose to talk about Burning Man for the music moment. And it's just interesting because since I've come to New York, and people know that I moved here and kind of, know this chapter of my life that I'm in. You're definitely probably like the fifth person who has mentioned Burning Man, but others they'll hear something about me and they'll say, "Oh, you should definitely look into Burning Man as part of, this realization stage that you're in." And I always thought it was because of the music and the art, because I talk so much about both and I'm connected to both. But then hearing you describe it on this emotion, like this, as you just did, I was like, okay, so maybe they were meaning something different. I'm sitting here thinking, oh, this is going to be a cool, thing to go and in a cool place. And I didn't realize at all that it was about survival and realization and putting leaving judgment at the gates and really pushing yourself and testing yourself in these extreme conditions, loving albeit, but still extreme conditions, and finding the beauty and just kind of the simplicity. I mean, even though the intricacies of the village, the camps, I think is what you call them, the camps?
Camps,
Camps,
yep,
yeah.
camps.
What they go to in the extremes, these people are planning all year long. Look, there's no way you can pull this off without.
All year long.
But it's also based on a principle of just, I don't know how else to say it, but like bare bones survival. Like
Yes.
Self-realization is what you call, or
Self-reliance.
reliance. That's what you call it.
Radical
Yeah.
self-reliance.
I just find it to be fascinating, and I wanted to share it with our listeners because we're not going to have many guests that have experienced that because it's not easy to get to go. You have to be invited.
Yeah.
You don't get to just show up. You have to be invited now.
So you want to so you're going to be a part of a camp, then you have a ticket. So there's definitely a process and absolutely look it up. But there's a process by which you get there. I have a lot of people who I know who have gone for 10, 20 years plus. And I mean, Burning Man is exactly what you said. You're in the middle of the desert and you are supposed to be self-reliant because that's the principle. So between you and your camp, you need to prepare for your food, your water. You're out for 10 hours plus a day if you have that type of energy, and you're experiencing so many different things. So exhaustion, thirst, the sun beating down on you, and this year the mud. I can't even talk about the mud. Whatever you saw in the press, I'm just going to say we know what press and media does. Sure, there was mud, and of course it was sticking to your feet, and of course people were getting stuck if you don't have four-wheel drive. Like, come on. But that's a part of the experience. Like, it is a part of the experience. You go in into the natures, and you go in with a community of people that live by these principles and imagine what happens, and it's pure magic, and there's no other way to describe this feeling. But coming out, I'll say, I was in a completely different universe, and I had to adjust to what we call society.
So think about that.
Coming
for a second.
back.
Coming back.
I lived in a world where you wake up every day, or you stay awake through the sunrise, and you are appreciating what's in front of you with the people in front of you, and you're going on these missions that include going to the temple because you have something special that you want to put there. And for me, it's recognizing a family member who's passed and also a friend of mine who committed suicide, and really bringing that and saying, hey guys, like, I always told you I would do this, and I did, and I love you and I miss you, and whatever it is that you want to express, but that's what I did. And you're amongst other people who have and are bringing their full selves and whatever it is, trauma, etc.
Yeah.
And I can't even explain the energies that you feel, the temple, or, I'm getting chills, or if you're seeing Diplo at sunrise or Robot Heart at sunrise, and people are just expressing themselves in the most beautiful ways, from what you're wearing to the things that you brought with you, to you're just dancing and you're hugging, and you're just, the energy that comes is unlike anything that you'll ever experience. And yeah, so again, you go in thinking something, and what you see and do and experience is, you can't describe it, and it's going to be different every, everybody else has their own, thinking, and I will tell you whatever you thought is absolutely wrong. and coming out, I will tell you that the world that we live in it's definitely a different world than that. And it takes adjustment. And so
I think the intent
pretty
of
crazy too.
Yeah.
Surely the intent is so that we can live in this, our year-round existence in a more meaningful way.
Yeah.
I mean, you should be able to take. I know it's difficult, but to bring that back. So anyway, I thought it was fascinating. I know
It's amazing. I don't even know what to think.
I know our listeners are going to love
Like,
that.
it sounds like, I always wonder, why do things like this happen in the desert or upstate New York? Like, it sounds like
Yes.
Woodstock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like,
Absolutely.
why?
Tenants there.
There's
Yeah.
there's some major energy coming from the desert. I don't know why, but maybe we'll have another podcast on that someday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why the desert? But I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, I've had a lot of experiences going in and, and all that, but I'll tell you, for me, one of my favorite experiences was, I entered into camp. Thank you, Ben, for gifting me the experience of Burning Man, who's been a mentor of mine for such a long time. And he said, I don't know why you've never done this before. And I was gifted the experience. And in getting there, this is going to sound crazy. I hitchhiked with a new friend that I found, Sarah, through a bulletin board. And Sarah and I were like, we're both looking for a ride in the middle of the night because we wanted to just get there as soon as we could and skip the bus experience that was provided by Burning Man. And we paid a taxi in cash in a very New York way. And hitchhiked to rode a taxi, to Burning Man. And by the way, nobody at Burning Man does this. So you're going to hear about this. And very few people have this story because you either get there by RV or proper coordinated bus through Burning Man. We took a taxi, and then a taxi can only go so far in the line of thousands of cars. And so it had to drop us off somewhere before you got a ticket. And from there, I needed a ride to get to my camp, and so did Sarah. So then we started knocking on car doors to be like, hey, do y'all have a room for 2 girls and 2 bags, or 1 girl and 1 bag? And this is the coordinates of my camp. And I knocked on this door, and Laura, thank you, Laura's awesome. She got out of her car and goes, well, heck yeah. Let me just move my bike out of the back seat. Her Jeep was full from top to bottom, and she opens the doors and she starts pulling her bike out, throwing bags out on the ground, putting it on top of her Jeep, and she didn't think twice about putting
you in the car.
Putting me in the car. And that's just one experience. But like, that is the community. Like
Right.
the playa will provide. And that's a big saying out there. It's, you are self-reliant. However, if you're in the pursuit, yes, we got you. We got you. It's community.
I love it.
For sure.
I love it.
I love that, that you're able to bring hitchhiking back a little. I mean, I'm not sure that I'm pro hitchhiking, but
No.
I just haven't even heard that word in a really long time until we had this conversation. So anyway, well, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing that. It's such a special experience, and I feel lucky to even know someone who had that kind of experience. So thank you for that.
And thank you for being with us today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having
It's
me.
so nice to get to know you.
Well, we
been a
can't
lot
wait
of
to
fun.
see what's next for you, and we certainly, whenever this airs, we'll keep our listeners updated. But thank you, and just thank you for your gratefulness and your humility. I think, and humility is one of those things that it can't be faked, the real kind. And I picked up that from you immediately. It doesn't mean that you're not motivated. It doesn't mean you're not driven. It doesn't mean you're not highly successful. It doesn't mean you don't have this, but you do. You started off this episode around servant leadership, and you have that in spades, whether it's personally or in your business life. So I'm grateful to know you, and I'm lucky to have neighbors like you. So thank you.
So glad we met.
All right. Well, we'll wrap up today's episode. We will have some information in the show notes today, particularly Burning Man. I got to get that link.
You're going to have fun researching
Yes,
that
I am.
business.
I am, and finding out how to do that because I think Danelle needs to do it.
And hitchhike, please.
Yes, and
Make sure
hitchhike
she
with care and concern. Yes. Thank you for telling a friend about today's episode. We'd love for them to meet Mollie too. And don't forget to visit beselfsmarter.com for tools and coaching options that we've curated just for you. And until next week, we send you into the week with grateful hearts.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
As always, you can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Self Smarter Podcasts. You can also leave a rating or review if you enjoyed what you heard today. Not only does this mean so much to us, but it also helps other leaders and future leaders find our community. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us in becoming Self Smarter. This podcast is produced by Snacks Media, and music is from a free platform. Well, that is until Brandy Carlisle reaches out to us to write the original score for our podcast. Friends, have a great rest of your day.